All right.
Hello.
Hello.
We're live. Okay, well, this is me with my COVID voice. It's very like Marge Simpson, but this is round four of COVID for us, for me. So I'm
The
going
whole
to,
family or just you?
both my kids are sick. They've had it twice. I've had it four times. So yeah, it's good times.
Yeah.
Doesn't
Oh, what
derail
do
your
we?
business or anything.
Yeah.
All right. I'm going to let you do most of the talking today
Okay.
because I know that there's a lot that you're
Hmm.
processing and that has been kind of on
Hmm.
your mind this week. But
Yeah.
like, catch us up. What's transpired this week?
So the launch, we did sort of a creative, non-traditional thing that I normally don't do, and just to kind of see if it would be different with the launch, and it just didn't really work very well. Um, it was the actual event was confusing. Nobody knew what it was. I think there wasn't very good participation, so people didn't actually like see the whole thing. And then on top of that, I didn't really fully actually explain the program and do a pitch and an explanation and a lot of the process that I take people through normally when I am taking them from interest to enrolling in something. And I went rogue on a lot of things and thought, we'll just see how it goes. So in a lot of ways, I've decided to go back to my um, some of the tried and true things, some of the founding principles of what I've done before, not rigidly following something. So I've been digging into this today. This is like an old I it's kind of old now, like it's been out for a while, but there's still a lot of really good stuff in here. Even those, some of the tactics and the strategies that used to work 5 to 10 years ago don't work the same as they do. There's some principles to taking people through the whole journey that I think work. And I think I've today, and I think I've figured out where the communication wasn't clear. I've this week, well, I didn't even actually tell people what happened. Let me back up for just a second. So basically, we are in the middle of the launch, and I just pulled the plug and stopped. I didn't fully finish it. I did the event. I used some of that content for the actual membership site because I think it was good content. It just wasn't used in the right context. It was more stuff that should be when people are already in the program, not leading them into the program. We realized that in the middle of it and just figured we'd finish it. And then during the follow up emails, people just really weren't clicking over to the page. People were kind of confused about what it was. So I just pulled the plug and decided to just send it out and get some feedback and ask some people. I sent the enrollment page to some people and asked them, do you know what this is? This is something that you'd be interested in. What do you think this would help you do? And some exploratory questions just to kind of see how clear I was being on the actual enrollment page. And that there were some places where we were on point, but then in the communication of the um, the problem statement and then the actual solution, like my unique solution and my USP was not clear. And it was like, all there's some stuff in there, but it just wasn't quite cohesive in a way that people could understand. And so I think it was just confusing to people. And so we are reworking that. I did take a break and focus on some other stuff I had to do. I left it for a day or two to just kind of process. But yeah, I think that the main thing is that um, I the, there were a couple core values that I almost or like core beliefs that I had about what the real solution was that I kind of went away from because I thought, oh, it's not going to be enough. People aren't going to believe it. But I don't know if that's true. Because really, my solution is that you need to be a better leader, and that's going to be something that's going to impact you no matter what you do. And I tried to make the career shift be the solution, but really, that's not the solution. That's just something that can happen as a result of the solution. That's not the real outcome, even though that is an outcome that could happen. And really the message that I wanted to convey is that, like, if you apply these principles of leadership to any route that you may go and get yourself in a position of power and influence, you're actually going to have a more fulfilling career. You're actually going to be able to make a difference. But in order to do that, your vehicle is that you need to learn how to be a better leader now. And I almost think of it as like people who go from one relationship to another and they don't address the things that's going on with them. And then they keep having, breaking up with people and having the same problems over and over again because they're not really addressing the core issue. And so, yeah, sometimes the relationship that you're in might not be right for you, but if you don't address your own certain things and patterns, then you're just going to carry it over to the next thing. And so I really wanted to convey that idea that, yes, there are legitimate issues, there are legitimate constraints, but also you need to address that aspect of owning the fact that you can be a leader now, regardless of what you do next. And I think that wasn't as clear as it could have been. And I think that I have some ideas about the way that I can explain that a little bit more clearly. I think that the one thing was missing is that a lot of times when you tell people like you need to go above and beyond, you need to go like be a leader and whatever, it's a little vague. And I think that the real thing that I'm wanting to say to people is that yeah, you might feel like you're not in a position where you have a lot of control over things and power over things. And the way that you actually solve those problems is to put yourself in a position of power. And this is how you do it. And yeah, that does probably mean putting yourself in a situation where your career might look a little bit different. It doesn't have to mean that, but it can. And so those things were sort of just like subtopics under this whole theme of leadership that I don't think was as clear as it could have been. And so that's, I think we're still going back to that same theme. It's just a matter of how it's being communicated and my willingness to kind of just put my stake in the ground and say, like, this is it. And I was just looking at some things on Instagram today that just, made me so mad, where I'm seeing the other messages that are out there that are the exact opposite of that, where it's like, I don't know, like something I saw today was like, oh, that's not my job, I'm not going to do that. And I'm like, no, you're supposed to like show up and over deliver. And I'm not saying that you should let people walk on you, but you can be that person who, takes that extra step and goes above and beyond as a clinician. Like,
Yeah.
you can be that person that's like, it's not like, that's not my job. You can be like, yeah, let me help you out. Let me hear you out. And I can think of situations where that was beneficial to me in the school district. Like, I think I said this before, but there was this whole process of getting kids into special ed, and it was really confusing. And sometimes teachers would ask you to do things that wouldn't necessarily follow procedure. And within the clinical world, people kind of get annoyed about that. And I'm like, hey, instead of being like, no, show me the data, that's not my job, I don't do that. You could be like, hey, what's going on? Like, tell me what's happening, and be a little more open and helpful. And then that actually does help them to follow procedure in the future and see you as a person that can help them. Like, to me, a person coming to me for help is a huge compliment. It's not, this situation where I'm like, and there's just a lot of stuff like that. I just think, like, those kind of things that come up. And I agree that we do need to set boundaries. We shouldn't do things that are, that other people should legitimately do. Like, there were situations where I had to be like, I don't know. I don't want to go into specifics there, but there were situations where I had to set boundaries with people at work, but not in that context. I think that sometimes that narrative gets a little, not helpful. And I want to be the person that's saying, hey, if you actually look at that situation different, if you see that as a compliment when people ask you for things, when they ask you to do things that aren't your job, then you actually can put yourself in a position where you do have more influence, where you're better at your job. And if you do want to make a transition to the next stage, you're going to be better at it. And that's like the key is doing that now and thinking like that, because if you have that attitude and then you go and try to move on to another job or role or open a business, like you're not going to be successful in that other situation. You know, the grass isn't going to be greener. So
yeah, and I think like one of the things you've always been clear on is that this is not about toxic positivity, kind of going,
no.
oh, but everything's going to be good. Like the reality is there are things you can't change, and there are things that are, you know, ingrained and may not be something that you have influence over, but there are lots of ways of thinking differently about situations like that and finding ways to work within them or around them, or you know, see them in another way that can actually help you and can actually create influence and change in the future. And I think the career angle was more about like, what are people thinking right now?
Yeah.
And you are bringing them over to a shift in that thinking. And so meeting them where they are right now, I think that's where the career stuff, and maybe it got a little like muddied up and,
It did a
in,
little
you
bit. Yeah.
know, but it was more of a, like a messaging thing, like meet people what they're talking about, because they're not sitting around talking about, oh, I should become a better leader in order to solve all these problems that I have. They're thinking, what do I do? Like what's my next phase of growth, right?
Well, I don't even think they're thinking that. Not all of them. I don't think they're seeing that as a solution either. Because I think that you know, I got that in my messaging or in my response to my survey, is that some people saw that and were like, oh yeah, I think it will help me move on to the next stage. And some people are like, no, I wasn't thinking about that, or I didn't know that that was an option. That was something that I asked somebody this week who actually did make a career shift, so maybe was at this point at some point in their career, and that person said, well, you know, like there some of those things I didn't know were options, you know, like being an SLP was my plan A. You know, it wasn't, I didn't come into the field thinking I was going to switch and do something else, even though that's what this person ended up doing. It was, she got there and she was feeling dissatisfied. And so it's the dissatisfaction. It's that more so than the career thing, which goes together, but not everybody makes that connection or sees that as their solution. And so I think it's drawing or connecting the dots for them between what is going to get them to whatever it is that they want, and seeing this as the solution to that. So yeah, I mean, I think that is that's something that I do have an idea of what to do with from here, as far as just, you know, stuff I need to make. But then I also I have some thoughts about just, you know, habits and behaviors that came up during this launch process, because, you know, I did warn you that Launch Karen was coming out. Of course, you know, and then, you know, Launch Karen is here and you have COVID. And so it's been an interesting week from that standpoint. Yeah, so some things that I noticed were, and my husband said this as well, and I think he was pretty spot on with it, is that where it's like I'll get really excited about a topic or something. And honestly, I'm a person who I can get really excited about a lot of things. Like I can get excited talking about running. I can get excited talking about like productivity and systems and, you know, morning habits or whatever. I can get excited talking about language and literacy or the leadership stuff. There's a lot of stuff. There's a lot of directions that I could go that would work for me. I think that, you know, I've talked about lots of different ways that I can build income, you know, assets for my business. I've thought about contract work, going and getting a job in a corporate setting and all those things. I honestly think that I could just pick something and go with it and like be happy in any of those different options. I think more of a matter of not like, this is my mission and this is the kind of work that I want to be doing. And like the leadership thing isn't some magic bullet for me. It is something that I believe in and that I care about. But what really is the thing for me is that I get excited about something and then you get through it and then you get into the dip when it gets hard and you have to decide like, is this like, does this mean that it's not working or does it mean that I just need to work through it? And so that's really more of my, like where my mind is going, not like I have to do this because this is my mission. Like there's a lot of missions that I can get behind. It's not this one thing, but it's just the idea and the like the principle of it and like being integral to what I said I was going to do and sticking it out and figuring it out. Like that, it's more about the values behind the thing rather than the thing itself. And I think that that's always what it's been like for me. And I think that, you know, some people do design their business around a specific mission and that's how they organize things. But that's not how it is for me. But this is why, like, that's my why that's keeping me going right now. You know, it's more about like the integrity and the persistence through it than anything. So yeah, I think that was just it's a blind spot for me. My husband noticed it. I'm sure you noticed it. So yeah, that was just something that came up. There was something else that I was thinking. I don't remember what it was. That was the big one. But yeah, I think that it is kind of hard to tell when you can just like when it's, oh, I know what my other thing was. Habits and other blind spots and the whole idea of being a leader and building your habits now that are going to support you regardless of what direction you're going to go. So the thing for me is that I know how to do independent work. I can write, I can do research. I'm good at it. I will just do it all day long. It doesn't take me, you know, a boot in the ass to get going on that. But with the networking and outreach, that's something that is not a habit for me yet, and it needs to be. And so even if I do figure out this webinar or whatever, and people, you know, we figure that out, I think that the success in whatever direction I go, whether I do decide, you know, whether this is the thing or whether it's my language therapy stuff or whether I go and, you know, eventually do pursue something corporate in, you know, in addition to running my businesses, the whole idea of the habit of networking and outreach and building relationships has to be there. And I have to start building that now. And so that's why, even though I'm kind of like I'm not doing that, I am doing that for a specific outcome, but every day I want to get in the habit of being like, who did I engage with today? Who did I reach out to today? And it does need to be strategic, but I think I was sort of being like, well, once I figured this out, I'm going to start doing it. I think I just need to do it and make it a habit now. And, you know, start with like something that's going to take me 2 minutes and then just go from there. And so that's another thing where I just think I need to start building that habit now. And yes, there needs to be purpose behind it, but it's also something that just is going to impact whatever direction. The direction doesn't matter.
Yeah, I agree with you. And I think the thing that I have learned about starting and seeing something through is that the more I talk about it to other people, not write about it, not, you know, create marketing around it, but the more I just have conversations, the clearer it becomes. So even just having like interview sessions with stakeholders today, as I was talking to them, I was actually clarifying some of my ideas in terms of the deliverable that I'm going to create for this project. And so I went into this project with complete ambiguity, like no idea how I was going to do it, what I was going to create. And then I just have the faith that I know that in my experience, the more I get into it, the more I have conversations, the more I start talking about it, the more clear it's going to become for me. So there is always going to be, like, I don't want to go into something with no plan whatsoever, but I know that the further I get in, the more clear it becomes, but the only way is through, right?
Yeah. Yeah. Yeah, that's that. It's funny because that's the whole thing in my executive functioning module is that a lot of times people who can't see and visualize themselves being successful, they procrastinate. That's a key executive functioning issue. And um yeah, it's hard. And that's why I think some of the strategies that people tell you in the personal development world are visualize yourself being successful, but I think the 2-minute strategy that's from Atomic Habits, that one is helpful or has been helpful for me when I really am having a hard time visualizing it, because then it gets you to that next step.
Yeah, and there's like the 2-second rule as well, or something that what's her name wrote, somebody wrote it.
I know who you're talking about. That she did the TED Talk.
Yeah, it's not Mel Robbins, but
that's who I was thinking. Maybe I'm
maybe
thinking
it is. 5-second rule, 5-second rule, something like that.
Something about how to stop screwing yourself over or something. But she has something about that.
Yeah, where it's like you give yourself 5 seconds and you just do something. And I know that so many people I know, and lots of my clients and everything have a real hard, have this initiation anxiety because they need things to be clear. They need things to be clear and absolute. And that's just not how it works, right? Unless you're delivering on a very structured, thought out, I think about the EOS, the enterprise or the entrepreneurial operating system. It's like a well-oiled machine now. So you go out to deliver EOS consulting and you're in a box, right? You know what's going to happen because it's entirely structured. For most of us in business, that's not how it works, right?
Yeah.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. And so that getting over that sort of initiation anxiety is really, really important. And, we have a mutual friend and, I've helped her with that too. And what she found was just the night before the next day, you just write down the 3 things you're going to work on. And when they're hard to do and you just procrastinate because they're boring or they're, whatever, if you break it down into just these tiny little steps and you just do one, then you do the next one, then you do the next one, it just helps so much in terms of getting that momentum, right?
Yeah, the momentum is key for me because the initiation tends to be a thing for me. I can get a lot done, but and I can persist when I'm in there, but the getting started, even getting out of bed, or doing stuff that I like to do, like working out and running and stuff. It's always the start.
It totally is
harder.
Yeah, I find with COVID, it's a lot harder.
That's different. That's a different situation.
But I think one of the things for you too is being comfortable with ambiguity.
Yeah, that one's a bitch.
And it's it spirals into this kind of catastrophic thinking, which I think is your brain kind of going, well, we should shut this entirely down if it's not safe or comfortable or clear, right?
Yeah.
And that's something you'll have to manage to sort of get through persisting with this program because, I know you mentioned the whole thing about working to your mission, but I don't think it's quite as grandiose as that. I think that it's really, really important that the work that we do is actually aligned with not with some vision that we have for ourselves, but who we are as individuals. Because if I force myself to keep doing work that I hate doing, or working towards something I don't really believe in, it doesn't work for me. It's totally misaligned. For me I've tried so many times to launch and offer low ticket products, and I can't sell them. Mm-hmm. It just it's just not aligned with kind of the values that I have, and I like big meaty projects and going deep and all of this sort of thing. So I guess it translates when I put something together that's low ticket because I'm just not into it, right? And it's not well aligned with who I am. So I think you do have to do that work to figure out who you are and what you want, and then you can put the energy behind the work, and it's still going to be ambiguous, and there's still going to be stuff to learn. But there's no data source out there that's going to tell us that, yes, this is right, or no, it's not right. So we have to keep going and keep doing the things. And that's where you're at right now is the discovery phase of of all the stuff. But I'm curious to hear what your plan is now.
Yeah.
This was a really important thing for anybody who's building a business to notice. You stopped.
Yeah.
You stopped, right? In the
Mhm.
middle of the launch, you stopped. You said, "Hold on," and it's fine, right?
Mhm.
There's nothing wrong with it. It's fine. I would rather you do that and have some of this like discovery than keep going and just being like, "Ugh."
And it's open, like people can join. I'm
Oh
just
yeah,
I'm not doing like a full promotion because I felt like it was not clear to people and it was confusing them and it just wasn't how I wanted to show
yeah,
up for my audience until I was clear on it. And so I went back to one of my other programs that I know that is a winner and that people like, and I'm going to give them that for now until I figure out how else I can help them over here. So the plan is that so every day I do have a list of people that I wanted to start reaching out to. I am going to be talking to a lot of therapists and people who are a fit for this specific program, but I'm also thinking differently about how I can start um, share packaging this in different ways or just networking with people to like get this in front of people yeah, in different ways. And I think the biggest thing for me is that I need to spend more time with the school leadership, with the people who already are in leadership positions to get a pulse on what they think is important, because a lot of times there are a lot of clinicians who do choose to invest in my programs, and it comes from that angle, like they're the ones that are initiating it. But there's a lot of times when, if I do want to reach people, I do need to approach the people who are looking at it from a different position, who are in more of a position of power in some respects, and who are seeing this from a different angle. And the other thing that is going to be very helpful is that these people are already in a leadership position, so they can definitely give me some insight on how to help the people that I'm working with be successful, because they're seeing it from a different angle. There's a little bit of, in this education clinical world, there's a lot of us versus them, like the clinicians and the teachers and the clinicians and the administrators. And I don't want that. Is another core value, is that we're all on the same team here and we all need to see it from all these different perspectives. And that's how I want them to think. So I do want to get the read on things from people who are already thinking that way and seeing it that way. And there could be another way that I could offer this same model that I've come up with, that I have packaged in a certain way in a membership form. There's a way that I could probably do that for school districts. And that is, again, I want to be in the habit of at least every day, I'm going to reach out to one person or do something. Like I need to figure out the exact amount of time, but I'm going to spend this much time working on networking. And the place that I'm starting is people who have done those types of activities in the schools. So that's my plan there. I do have a list of people that I'm going to talk to and get their thoughts on things. And then there's that. That's like a habit that I'm going to be doing. And then I am going to write a webinar with a clearer journey for people. And that's really my main first step. And then that will result in the sales page probably being changed. And then I'll have some kind of an ecosystem around it. So that's what I'm starting to map out now. That'll take a little time, but that's what I'm working on now. And then in the meantime, I'm just gonna launch or do a little promotion for one of my other courses that is, something that has been,
yeah,
that's the successful part, the language therapy course that is, already built out and has lots of members and all of that. I'm going to be doing that.
yeah. And interestingly enough, the conversations that we were having yesterday about options for you, I think even demonstrated that there are possibilities for this this work that you've created beyond just being delivered inside a membership. And then one day I'd love to, explore that too, how you could package this up into, other formats and that sort of thing. So I think there's something on the horizon for you. And I think this outreach commitment and habit is going to be so, so important because, first of all, you're developing the comfort with doing it. And secondly, I think those conversations are going to give you lots of clarity.
Yeah.
The clarity that you were looking for, maybe in data or maybe in somewhere else, I think just those conversations have to be had.
Yeah. Yeah. And I mean, if something falls in my lap from an opportunity standpoint, that's great. But I'm not looking for any specific outcome at this point with that. I'm focusing on the process there. Even though there are potential things that could come out of it. And I'm thinking about that in the future, but because obviously I have to figure out what I'm asking these people to talk about. But and the same thing with the jobs, I do also, I am interested in applying some of these concepts and skills to a corporate setting, but that I've decided to just keep my eyes open for different opportunities there as far as like stuff that's being posted, but not do, again, that's more of a habit thing where I'm like, I'm just gonna keep my eyes open to that, to also to school administrative positions, because that would give me, that could give me some a means that I could use this model as well. But I'm also not gonna. It's not my main thing. This is still my main thing right
For
now.
sure. For sure. And I think that those are all windows into the outside world, right? That I think could be sources of great inspiration. I know that I was looking through, my coach actually put me through this exercise once when I was having a little moment. And she goes, okay, you get 27 things today. Write a list of like these 27 ways that you could make money. Like nothing is off the table. And I had things on there like, sell my dog, right? I've got a fancy designer dog. I could sell my dog. And all I had to do was take one action on all of them just to see how it felt. And one of the things was going out and looking for a job. I knew I didn't want to get a job, but the exercise of doing that was pretty interesting because it started to open up my eyes that there were all these other things out there that are possibilities. And it just like got me out looking into the rest of the world. And actually from that exercise, it started formulating an idea in my head of how I wanted to engage with my clients in a different way that would be more aligned with my skill set. So I think that there's just value in like keeping our finger on the pulse of everything that's happening around us.
Yeah. Yeah. It is kind of interesting just to see what's going on out there.
Yeah.
Yeah. Because
Okay.
you never know. I'm not gonna. I think you can be open to things that fall in your lap, but also keep focused on the things you're currently making your priority.
Yeah. Yeah. And the universe delivers. Like, I got very intentional this year about what I wanted my business to turn into. And the first half of the year, I was just like, what is going on? And then the second half of the year, all of a sudden, everything fell in my lap. And I was like, oh, I'm not a religious person. I don't, necessarily believe in an otherworldly source, but some type of energy was like being aligned around all of my intentions and all of the things that I, had been really working towards and putting sort of feelers out. And I think we sort of subconsciously do that too. But I think that only happens when we get really certain about what we want.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
Yeah. I think it's, what's that called? It's not confirmation bias or the availability bias or something like that. I don't know. It's some kind of bias, some cognitive bias. Like you're focused on something, and so you notice it more because
I know what you're saying. Yeah.
Or there's something that the guy his name's Richard Wiseman. He did a study on luck, and it's something with that you like thinking expansively. It just makes you more open to notice things.
Yeah.
So what people say is the universe delivering is really just you being in a place where you can capitalize on things and find things and see things, see opportunities versus just being closed off to them.
Yeah.
So yeah.
Yeah. And being
as the evidence-based person I am, I have to that's how I explain that. But again, it still works.
Yeah. I mean, we like to joke about
explanation for why it's working.
We like to joke about the universe delivering, and my best friend calls me a dirty hippie sometimes because she says things. I'm the queen manifester, but I know that stuff only happens when I'm absolutely certain and clear about what I want.
Wait, so she says that you're a queen manifester, but you don't believe in manifesting. Is that what she's saying? Or the other way around, like you believe in it and she doesn't.
Oh no, I don't know that either of us are like absolutely believing in it.
Yeah.
I think manifestation is really about us getting really I think we very subconsciously make things happen when we decide that's what we want.
Yeah.
And it's not some otherworldly source that's, pushing things towards us. I think it's that we make decisions and we subtly look for things and make ourselves available to things that we may not have in the past, right?
Totally. Yeah.
And it shows up as like this miracle, as like this big crazy thing. Yeah.
Your expansive mindset.
Expansive mindset. My vaginal breathing. Yeah.
Oh yeah. Maybe the vaginal breathing can open you up to being expansive.
That's right. Okay, so
that sounded bad, but anyways.
So we had our next, I think next week or the week after was our last show, and I think this is a really interesting place for us to get to because there's been a real journey for you, like absolutely, and it's been kind of fun to watch, and I'm really interested and curious to see what happens after a week of this habit forming.
Yeah. Yep. I've already had some conversations that were helpful. So
good. Okay. So let's leave it there. And next week we'll check in one last time and let's see how you're going with your habits. But I think this has been such a fascinating journey and so much discovery and so much self-discovery. And to me, it's so much less about like the outcome and more about the progress that you make, right? And I know that's hard to hear. And we all want these, bottom line outcomes, but I actually think you've put yourself in a much better position.
Yeah.
All right. Habits, manifestation.
Yep.
We're covered.
Yep.
Life coach. All right. We'll see you next week.
All right.
You're talking with Karen on her outreach.
Yeah.
All right.
Bye, everybody.